I'm destroying my clothes with power tools, sandpaper, and fabric dye to make them more unique and hopefully better, but you can be the judge of that. I have these two hoodies that I'm going to tear up, one just a little bit, and the other I'm not really sure how much hoodie is going to be left. You know when you walk into a vintage store and look at a hoodie that's been through both world wars, paint splatters, weird stains and holes, and you make the mistake of looking at the price and it's like $200? Most people would think to themselves, who on earth would wear that? Me. It's me, I'd wear that. But why pay 200 bucks when I can make it myself? Let me explain my plan for each hoodie and then we can go make them. The first one's going to be pretty tame. I'm just going to take a Dremel to the edge of the hem and the hood and just make it a little bit more vintage overall.
It's vintage distressed.
This one you could probably see yourself wearing. And then the second one I'm going to go crazy on, distressing it until it's not even a hoodie. Then I'm going to put it in some color removing dye to fade it a little bit, and then I'm going to sew a long sleeve underneath to give it some more structure and get rid of those peekaboo holes. This one, I don't know if I even see myself wearing it on the daily, but it's going to look sick. I'm super excited to see how these turn out, so let's go destroy some hoodies. I started off by putting my mask and safety glasses on. The cotton fluff isn't good to breathe in, and I figure my eyes are kind of important, and I kind of like to keep those around. Then I've seen hoodies with this cut V neckline all over Instagram, and so I figured I would try that on my first hoodie. I cut that out with fabric scissors, then I brought out the Dremel and set that up. A Dremel is a rotary based power tool that I use for distressing clothes all the time. I distressed the V that I just cut and then moved on to the hood. I went all the way around the hood and then brought out this brush with metal teeth. I use it to draw fibers out of whatever I've just cut. Usually that's jeans, but today I'm doing that on a hoodie. This is how the hood looks after I'm done with it. Absolutely immaculate. I then moved on to the cuffs. As you can see, I stretched them over this plywood, which made it easier to work on. Again, this hoodie is going to be minimally distressed so that up close it has some cool texture, but it looks like a normal hoodie. I roughed up the pocket area and then moved down to the waistband. I kept having to replace the bits on my Dremel because it would get worn out super quick. I also took the Dremel to all the seams as the final touch. This one went pretty quick, but trust me, the next one is going to be way more complicated and more time consuming. Alright guys, I'm done with the first hoodie. Here's a sneak peek of how it looks, and now let's really start destroying some clothes. The second one is going to be way more work, but I have a good feeling about it. I just started by ripping up the whole hoodie. I started on the shoulder, as you can see, and this is how it looked as I started. Honestly, this hoodie is just a lot of running the Dremel all over it. I was so sore afterwards. Also, the Dremel bit kept catching the fabric and circling it around the bit. I also had to keep replacing the bits. If you plan on doing this yourself, make sure you've got extra bits for your Dremel. I've done a lot of work with Dremels on my channel before, usually with jeans, which looks awesome, but it's cool to try using techniques in different things and seeing how they turn out. Here's how it's looking now. I have to shake the fluff off, and then I decided to rip the hoodie a bit with my hands. I figured this would make the distressing look a little bit more organic. Then I moved on to the hood, circling around the edge like the first hoodie and then moving to the center. And then when I wasn't filming, the bit flew off the Dremel and took a swipe at my finger. I was so shaken up guys, but I had a job to do, so I kept working. I moved on to the sleeves. At this point I was so sore aside even from my finger and just wanted to be done with this part of the project. Anyways, you've probably seen enough footage of me using a Dremel at this point. Once I was done, I swept up the lab. I told you guys the fluff gets everywhere, and with that I was finally done the first part of this second hoodie. Alright guys, I've got the hoodie all thrashed up, and now I'm gonna take this color removing dye that I bought and try to remove some of the color of it to make it look a little more faded. I've watched a couple videos on how to use this, and basically all I need to do is heat up some water and then pour the powder in, and then I'm gonna test it out on this scrap first to see how long I want to leave the actual hoodie in there, because if I leave the hoodie in there for too long, the hoodie could turn fully white, and I don't want that to happen. And then once I'm done that, I'm going to sew a long sleeve into the hoodie to give it some structure, add the final details, and then I'll show you guys both hoodies. I filled up a pot of water and put it on the stovetop to boil. I was checking the temperature because it needed to reach 180 degrees Fahrenheit. I poured the color removing dye in, stirred that around, and then submerged a little scrap because I wanted to see how the fabric would react. I let that sit in there for a bit, and it was really weird because the color of the water started turning yellow, which I never thought would happen. I have a theory for this, which I'll say in a second, but first I took the scrap out, then submerged the whole hoodie. It was hard to squish the whole thing in there, but I managed to do it. The solution I put in the water is a chlorine-free bleach, and you know how when you bleach a garment that's black, it turns orange? I think the reason that the water is turning yellow is that the non-chlorine bleach is also removing this orange tint, so you're left with the shade. I don't know, that's just my thoughts. As you can see, it's starting to remove the color. I then took the hoodie over to my tub, sorry to my roommates, and started rinsing it off. To be honest, I was kind of confused because it didn't look like it had lightened up at all, but I took it down and threw it in the washing machine. And once the cycle was done, I went back down to pull it out, and I was shocked with how light that it actually turned out. Alright guys, I washed the hoodie and let it dry overnight, and this is how it's looking. It turned out way lighter than I thought it was going to when I was rinsing it out yesterday. To be honest with you, it's actually a little lighter than I was hoping it to be. But I'm going to sew this black long sleeve in underneath to give it some structure. And then if I still think it's too light, I might go buy some other color dye and dye it again. But we'll see how it turns out. That'll be a decision for later. So yeah, let's sew these two together and see where we're at. I thrifted this black long sleeve. I put that into the hoodie and pinned along the neckline and cuffs. I then went to set up my sewing machine, and once that was all done, I started sewing around the neckline. I wasn't too concerned about how neat it was because this hoodie isn't really that neat to begin with. I just wanted the long sleeve to be stuck in there. I sewed around both cuffs as well, and with that, the hoodie was sewed together. Alright guys, I'm done sewing the hoodie and it looks awesome, but I'm not happy with the color. So I went out to the store and I bought this RIT fabric dye. Hopefully I don't turn it back to pure black, but I want it to be more of like a faded black than a gray. So hopefully this works out, and then I'll be done the hoodie and I'll show you guys the final reveals. For this color dye, I don't need the water to be boiling. I just need it to be hot, so I turned on the water in my tub. Once it was up to a good temp, I started filling up this bin. Once it was full enough, I opened up the RIT fabric dye and poured that into the bin. Along with the dye, you're also supposed to add some dish soap to the mix and some salt as well. I dropped the hoodie in and stirred it around. Again, this is my first time working with color dye. I've never worked with anything like this before. I really didn't want to leave it in too long like I did with the color removing dye, so I took the hoodie out pretty quickly and rinsed it off until the water ran clear. Then I dumped the dye bath out into the tub. Again, sorry to my roommates. Don't worry, I cleaned it all up. I threw it in the wash, and once the cycle was done, I went down to grab it, and the color was perfect. I'm so happy with how it turned out. Now I just need to throw together an outfit to show you guys the final hoodies.